Okay, hi. So I thought it would be fun to do a little behind the photo with my single cover for my cover of I Will Follow You Into the Dark. I thought it would be fun to do because, on top of me being a musician, a singer, an actress, I also am a photographer. And while I think that I'm a good photographer, I think where I really shine is in color editing. Of course, I love setting up the shot and making the composition aesthetically pleasing, but I really love utilizing color as a means to tell a story and evoke a certain emotion. A lot of my friends like watching me edit my photos or explaining how I do them, so I figured it'd be fun to show a little tutorial on how I edited my single cover for I Will Follow You Into the Dark. You're looking at the photo that ended up being the cover, and then I will show you what it looked like before. So here's what the original looked like. This is cropped. I'll show you actually what it really looked like. That was the photo. So it's cropped, but otherwise there's no editing on it. I deleted all of the oh, just kidding. Hold on. I knew something looked different. We'll get into that. I deleted all of the editing. So that's what it looked like. And I figured we would go step by step on how I made it look like this. And I think something that's so funny about editing is sometimes you have to take a little bit of a break from it and then come back and give it a fresh set of eyes, because when you look at these two side by side, I feel like the final product clearly looks so edited, but when I come and I look at it without having seen the original, it looks realistic. So sometimes you have to remember that too. Like, don't be afraid to be a little bit more bold and then come back to it later with a fresh set of eyes and see if it's giving the emotion that you want it to. So obviously, like, my eyes have been settling into this now and I'm like, yeah, this looks great. Obviously, when you look at them side by side, this one looks very realistic, and then you come back to this one, you're like, oh, okay, lots of color editing here. Like I said, when you give it some space, you'll understand that it works. I think it works. So obviously the photo was shot in broad daylight, and I wanted to give it the feeling that I was running into the sunset because I Will Follow You Into the Dark. I did a lot to not only make it look like a sunset on the horizon, but to make the sun that is hitting my shirt and my hair, all of those highlights, give the feeling of the sun is setting. It's not full sun. I played around a lot with color and exposure and the highlights and the shadows. On top of that, I also tend to really like the nostalgic feeling that a fuzzy photo gives. That's kind of part of my style. So you'll see, for example, my hair looks kind of fuzzy and grainy in here, whereas in the original, it's a little bit more defined, and I took that out because that's my personal preference. So on top of the color and the exposure and the contrast and giving all those sunset kind of feels, I also softened up the image to give it a little bit more of a vintage quality. So we'll go through all that step by step. We'll start here with just the light section. So we'll go through the exposure, the contrast, and it looks like I brought down the blacks just like a little bit. Okay, so I'm just gonna kind of take note of these numbers so I can show you kind of in real time how I did it. Negative 0.62, negative 38, and negative 8. Okay, so we'll start there. So I obviously brought this down a little bit, and you can see that right there, what that does to that image already. Obviously it's still broad daylight, but it takes away a lot of that harshness. And so a lot of people like really high contrast images. I brought down the contrast in this one. Again, it gives it a little bit more of that soft, nostalgic feel. And it can be really helpful when you have like dark shadows and bright highlights and just leveling the playing field a little bit. I do this a lot, like when I'm taking photos of clients in high direct sun. If I don't have something to make that light look really even on their face, I'll bring down that contrast so there's not these harsh shadows on their face. So we're gonna bring that down, and you can kind of see how by lowering the contrast, it kind of also lightens up the image. Then I'm counteracting that by just bringing down the blacks a little bit, just to bring some of that dimension back in while still smoothing it out. Okay, let's go into color now. I don't think I adjusted anything temperature wise because I did a lot of that color development in saturation, in the color mixer, and in the color grading. So I didn't really need to pull the temperature anywhere. I did pull the tint. That's very interesting. So +4 and +21. It's always better to be a little bit. It's funny too because I was like, don't be afraid to just like go for it, but also like sometimes less is more and you can be a little subtle in your changes. Like if I were to pull something all the way in one direction, you would see how drastic that changes, and sometimes that can be really helpful for figuring out what direction you want to go in, and then you just got to pull it back a little bit. And then I brought down the luminance on blues just to kind of, I think what it's going to do, if I remember correctly, is bring down the color of the ocean. So let's see here, -26. Yep, that's exactly what it does. Already, I mean, we got a great image here. If we look at it before versus after, we're doing a great job here. It's already bringing out a lot more color, and it's bringing down some of the harshness of the sun, giving you a little bit more of that golden hour romantic feel, but we're not there quite yet. So let's continue. The color grading, I'm actually going to save that for last. I'm going to bring us down to effects, and then we're going to go into masking. Okay, so for effects, like I said before, I softened it up. So I brought down that texture, I brought down that clarity, I brought some grain in, and then I did end up sharpening it a little bit just to help like keep some of those hair tendrils defined while giving it that soft look. I know it sounds counterintuitive. A lot of editing really just is vibes. And I'm like, yeah, this felt right. Okay, so -21, -25. We'll start there. You know what? I'm going to zoom in really quick, actually. Hold on. So you can kind of get a feel for what's going on here. You can see in real time. -21, -25. Do you see that? How it just like kind of softened that up, brought out a lot of that dimension, but like I said, it gives it a little bit more of that like a vintage photo feel. And then I love a good vignette. I'm a sucker for a good vignette. -19, and I brought some grain back in with 15. Okay. It just helps like draw the focus in towards your subject. Yeah, and a vignette, if you like do it all the way, it can be too much, right? Like obviously that's not what we want. But just a little bit helps just draw your focus to where you want your focus to be. And then like I said, I sharpened it up just a little bit more at 51. It's interesting. Why did I do that? Whatever. Okay, now I'm gonna go on to masking. So I ended up masking the sky in this. What did I do? I masked the sky. I brought down the exposure. Oh, interesting. And I did actually move the temperature, the tint, and the saturation in this. We'll start with the exposure and the contrast, -44 and +2. So I'm going to go to my masks. I'm going to click sky. And it's just going to select the sky. And sometimes if I like just want to triple check, I'll hover over it to make sure it's only highlighting what I want it to. Okay, -40. Nope, just kidding. It's a different mask. -44 +2. Oh yeah, now we're cooking. All right, we're starting to enter a different time of day here. It's all coming together. And then, on top of that, +21, +28, +27. Trend here. 21, 28, 27. don't know why it brought that down. That's so weird. What the heck? Well, okay. I'll just type it in. I've been dragging so that you can kind of see the difference in real time, but let's see. 21, 28. Now it's working. 27. Okay. You're starting to see what's going on here, right? It's giving it a little bit more of that sunset feel by just bringing the warmth out in the sky part that is closer to the horizon. And that's all we got going on here. What is our mask to? Oh, you know what? I took a brush to like this little green thing that was, can you see that? That was on the sand. I honestly, just for these purposes, am not even going to worry about that. So this is kind of our base image, and this might be controversial, but in my opinion, this is as far as you can go with your basic edits. Like, if you really wanted to, you could go into the color mixer here, or you could use the temperature and the tint to try to edit any colors, but I just don't think it's going to give you the same result that it would by just fixing the color grading. So that's what we're going to do. So in the color grading, you have options to add colors to your shadows, your midtones, and your highlights. Maybe add color isn't the best way to phrase it, but for all intents and purposes, you are basically operating as if the shadows, the midtones, and the highlights are not leaning in any direction, like those things are just white or clear, and then you're adding color to it, if that makes sense. That's how I understand it. I'm sure there's somebody who can explain it a lot better than me. And that's how we end up with this sunset kind of image. This one's going to be a little bit more difficult for me to just like drag because it is a spectrum wheel right here. It's not a linear thing. Okay, so for shadows, we're at 288 and then saturation 10. And you can see, you can see just by looking at it that it's leaning on the purple side. And you can see that in here, right? Like you can see that in the shadows of the image. 288 and 10. Boom. See how that changed? Automatically, it took some of that like green tone out, made it a little bit more romantic. I'm a sucker for romance. Midtones. Midtones we have leaning on the orangey yellow side, and that's what you see all in this, right? Like, I think part of the thing that's really fun about color grading is you actually get to see how your image is composed. Is it mostly shadows? Is it mostly midtones? Is it mostly highlights? Is it a good blend between 2 or 3? This photo has a lot of midtones in it. It also has a lot of highlights in it. You see that in all the whites. Okay, so 35, 43. 35, 43. Boom. We're already most of the way to the image that we have here. Okay, 41, 92. 41, 92. Boom. And there you have it. Can't tell the difference between either of these images. And that's because they're the same image. So, as a recap, that was the before. This is the after. I hope you enjoyed this little tutorial slash, not even necessarily a tutorial, just like this is how Chelsea likes to edit her photos. And I hope that you will stream I Will Follow You Into the Dark. It's one of my favorite songs of all time, which is so cliche to say, but I mean, it's cliche for a reason because it's a good song. Okay, bye.